can be able to access the recording later and can listen to the recording when they have time. So just before we start, I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome everyone on behalf of the CSESI project team. So the Climate Smart Education Systems Initiative. We would like to warmly welcome everyone. First of all, I'd like to also acknowledge any of our Pacific heads of education systems members who are part of this call. Also acknowledging other government representatives. Also acknowledging our key partners and stakeholders across the region, CSOs or NGOs. And we also welcome our key speakers for this session. We acknowledge all of your attendance today. Thank you for taking the time to be available for this session. We will start off our session immediately. So if I can just ask Leanne to share her screen for our presentations. So just before we continue, I'd like to start off with sharing a brief introduction to the CSESI project. So the CSESI project is as I mentioned earlier, is the Climate Smart Education Systems Initiative. It's an 18-month regional project funded by the Global Partnership for Education, and its focus is to enhance the climate resilience of education systems across the Pacific. So CSESI is part of a global wider initiative, which is jointly led by Save the Children and UNESCO, and is implemented in close coordination with national education ministries and regional partners. As I mentioned, CSESI is seeking to enhance country capacities in mainstreaming climate change adaptation and environmental sustainability into education sector plans, budgets, and strategies, as well as enhancing education ministry capacity for cross-sectoral coordination on climate and environment-related policy programming. So yeah, that's just a brief background of the CSESI project. And on to our main sort of focus for this afternoon and morning. So this is the first CSESI webinar that we are hosting for this year. It's part of a series of webinars that will be upcoming later this year. Specifically for this session, because this session is focused on infrastructure or school infrastructure, which is an important component of the CSESI project, besides other components, where we will also have other webinar series coming up. But this is the first of 3 parts of the CSESI infrastructure peer learning webinar series. And our objective for this afternoon is to look at sharing practical lessons from experiences from other countries in terms of their work in school infrastructure, focusing on climate smart considerations and what actually has happened during different phases of the work that they're doing, especially in terms of assessment, planning, delivery and post-completion. So I will be chairing our session for this afternoon. As I mentioned in the chat, I'm with Save the Children and project coordinator for the CSESI project. And also I'd like to introduce a little bit our speakers for this afternoon. Our moderator, our key moderator will be Leanne Harrison. She is the project manager for the Global Performance Building Network group, who is a key implementing partner in the CSESI project. So Leanne will be our key moderator. And then also we will have our key speakers from each of the countries that are talking today. We have Leveni Aho, who is from Tonga and representing the Pacific Resilience Project. We have Aquila Raimbe from the Fiji Ministry of Education. He's the principal officer, education officer for assets and infrastructure. And Samson Sawan from the Vanuatu Ministry of Education, who is the principal education officer looking after assets and infrastructure as well. So these are our speakers for this afternoon. I will now hand over to our moderator, Leanne, to kick us off with the program. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and welcome to everybody who is online. We have an hour and a half for today's session. It's not a lot of time, given the enormous kind of depth and breadth of content to cover. So I've done a brief kind of outline of how the program will run. I'll give a brief overview of our role, but then we'll have a presentation from Tonga, Fiji, and then Vanuatu. We'll take a question or two after each of the speakers has finished, if anyone has anything pressing. And as John put it up in the chat, please, if you have any thoughts while the presentations are being given, to put that into the chat so that we can moderate that and answer to anything, either during the session or even afterwards. We can't cover all of the questions. At the end, we are planning to have a group Q&A to kind of share experiences amongst all of us. And then we have a quick survey at the very end of just 4 questions to gauge how this webinar went for you and what we can do better. Because we, as John mentioned, we have 3 webinars. This one is to give you an overview from 3 different countries of completed school infrastructure programs, how they were assessed, planned, delivered, and what we've learned along the way, and with a really strong emphasis on the climate smart considerations. The next 2 webinars will give you more information as we come towards them throughout the year, but those we're hoping to drill deeper into some of the areas where you'd like to know more. So, as John mentioned, I'm with the Global Building Protection Network, where the implementing education infrastructure partner for the CSESI Pacific Help Desk. There's also a Caribbean help desk that we have just set up. That program was launched last week. And GBPN focuses on carbon zero building infrastructure and decarbonisation. It's a global network of experts, of engineers, policymakers, communications, a range of different expertise, but we have a Pacific Help Desk team. And part of that team, we also have Tim Stats, who many of you will know, and also Build Better from Vanuatu. So they provide us with infrastructure, education, architecture, and engineering and policy expertise. We also have a GBN team in Africa who we work very closely with as well. So GBPN has offices in Nairobi, Indonesia, and India, as well as having our teams in the Pacific and the Caribbean. We promote and provide technical support But also we're really focused on encouraging peer-to-peer learning. So that is why it's really fantastic to have so many of you online today. We're here to help with policies, codes, tools, processes, and in particular, we're focusing on standard school designs and how to make them more climate smart across the region. So we're here to help respond to requests. And if you'll see on the other side of the screen, there's a picture of our landing page with a red arrow showing a button, Climate Smart Schools. If you want to reach us, you click on that button and it takes you to a form where you can note your inquiry and we can respond to you. We also have, as well as these webinars, we're also producing guidance notes and advisory notes. We can provide other kind of coordination, referrals, terms of reference support. Essentially, we're here to look at how do we help the ministries in the Pacific climate smart their building project cycle. That's just a wee snapshot. Oh, got a bit of a feedback. Don't know if you're getting it, but that's the form you'll see if you click on that button. And there's also some information about what we can offer support on. You can also contact me if you'd like any details. So we'll move quickly along to our Tongan case study of Lavini. If I'll just put your screens on now. So please feel free, let me know if I need to go slower or faster with the presentations. But Lavini's presentation is going to focus on building back better after Cyclone Gita and how they have strengthened school resilience in Tonga. Over to you, Lavini.
Thank you, Leon, and welcome every Malolei to everyone out there from the Kingdom of Tonga. By the way, I'm no longer. I retired from the NDO's office some 8 years ago, but I still connected to some of these projects at schools. Yeah, and I'm not a representative of the Ministry of Education at this point. Anyway, that's I think it's a lot better that way, so we can speak freely of anything. Anyway, Cyclone Gita hit Tonga in February 2018, and we lose quite a lot of classrooms, and some 1,200 students learning attend several months after the event. They were housed through tents. And it was to seek help, and World Bank was a part of the team that helped us in setting up, originally selecting, receiving about 17 million USD as additional financing to Tonga prep projects. The resilience, the funding is back on the prep projects because of other arrangement of the bank, so that we can tap in quite quickly and go ahead, because the board of directors meets once a year, and this event happens in the middle of the night. So we can't afford to wait, hang on a lot longer. But okay, you might now move on to the next slides. The rapid assessments teams particularly from the main head office, joined with the Ministry of Education, we are out in the field and start looking for damages. And visually, it was devastated because it went over from roof being detached and up to completely destroyed buildings. But as you can see, the structural and non-damage failures assessed, identification of buildings beyond economic repairs will tend to be a lot of people were focusing on Sound.
Lavinia, you seem to have frozen. Possibly it might pay to turn off your camera. It might help with the bandwidth.
In,
You're back with us.
okay, the camera is off. What else? Yeah, everything else, the mic is still on. Yeah, I think this is the seismic. Yeah, we tend to address everything from high wind to cyclones to flooding and seismic movement and etc. So it's basically because we are vulnerable.
Hi, Lavinia. You've frozen again.
In the same time.
You're back. You're back. Sorry, Lavinia, you'd frozen again.
Oh, sorry. You give to remind us on that because otherwise I'll be talking to myself. Yeah. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Yes, you just
Okay.
been explaining the different types of risks, the cyclones, flooding, and seismic risks.
Yeah. We unfortunately Tonga is one of the highest risks, just behind Vanuatu in that case. We were the two most vulnerable in the Pacific and in worldwide as well. And I think we tend to focus on rebuilding anything that we rebuild. It must be done to make sure that we are built back better. And let's address everything at this stage. Yeah. Yeah, I think the main thing with the cyclones roofing system need to also be highly to make sure it's that the face the design is can face up the wind loading and also at the same time it's resist all the seismic movements that normally encounter happens here on a monthly basis more often, but we don't feel it or don't hear it. Water storage is also and power is also consideration particularly when we consider accessibility and also for the schools operating wash facilities because the wash facilities we are relying on water supplies and the power to actually push the rainwater right through the system. Right? And this is a problematic area in future projects. And I think we start addressing that now. Okay, on the next slides, the key challenges encountered here was that the political interference. Of course, you can't do a project of this nature without having politicians all over your trying to brief down your net and why is this delayed and why is this not happening. These sort of things happen all the time, and I think we need to develop a fairly thick skin to work with people like that and to make sure that we are focusing on our task to make sure that the kids at the end of the day have a quality education facilities. And I think it's also managing the timeline is it's because I think the big pressure for us here in Tonga was that after the cyclone hit in 2018, January 2018, and when school were about ready to go back to school on 2021, kids were still in tent. And I think this was the big question that the politician could not answer the public on. Well, the kids are still in tents after almost 2 years, over 2 years now. When are we going back to school normally so that the kids can learn basic things without being bored? Because in a tent, in a climate like Tonga at this time of the year, it can be fairly uncomfortable to be under a tent. And this is where it's for us bigger people, but for the children, it's very disheartening to see that they still manage that. Anyway, this was part of the political pressure that we were under at the time to deliver the time to make sure that the kids are out of the tent as soon as possible. Yeah, and that was one of the major challenges that we faced at the time. Managing expectation, we also at the time under the pressure the project manager at our end were agreed to the 120 days contract, which is ridiculous, knowing in advance that this will be very, very difficult to meet. A, the time is too short, and B, the level of the contractors, the quality of the contractors are not in that position to turn over things overnight to that. Yeah, but that's mainly what the issues with us. Is there the next slide, please? Or is that it? Are we?
Yes, I've just moved on to the lessons that you've learned.
Oh, yeah, I think the lessons learned from this issue is particularly with the knowing the contractors, the quality and the and the logistics of us, even in Tonga, because we are so far away from the supply line, and yet we are too small to make a ripple in the effect of, the supply line comes mostly from New Zealand or Australia, sometimes from Fiji that comes locally, but most of our timbers and that are coming from New Zealand. Most of the timber materials is radiata pine, and the roofing material is mainly color steel from New Zealand as well. Hello. Yeah, and I think that's where the engagement of the it needs also that when development partners like World Bank and this is sort of the first time we enforce work safe in building up, building better is not only for the construction of the, but also for the contractors to learn from their lesson. And I think this is part of the learning. And unfortunately, the learning cannot be from experience cannot be exchanged overnight. This is an ongoing The training has to be done on a regular basis to make sure that these people get the hang of it, the understanding why, the reason for the safeguarding and all the safety involved in the projects. But I think this is the mainly things that that we take it from this end, that we are still very much part of the agency of helping out to develop to a better situation at the end. So, and I think this was part of the lesson that we always look forward to make sure that our limited resources are shared and responded. But I think it's also the other area that we looking at is developing infrastructure management so that we maintain land to maintain in the Pacific here. We tend to let things when it comes to budgeting, we always cut out the maintenance part of it because of the limited funding, and there's always the thought that next year we will be able to do that. So next year's compounding until it's no longer hold that. And I think this is a typical thing that not only applies here in Tonga, but throughout the Pacific as well. Yeah, I think with that, that's my the issue from Tonga, that we'll be looking to make sure that we do not we learn from that by doing budgeting proper, to start looking at maintenance instead of everything doing from scratch every time there is a cyclone come through, or earthquake, or tsunami that destroyed school infrastructure.
Thank you, Livini. You're sort of explaining about some of the systems processes that needs to be put in place so that it's not as so reactionary. I think we may need to hold questions for Livini. If anybody has anything, we've got some feedback. Livini, you may need to turn off your microphone. Yeah. If anyone has any questions for Livini, could you please put them in the chat, and then we'll attempt to come back to them in the bigger Q&A session at the end. Just to keep to time, we'll move along and we'll pass on to Aquila from Fiji, who's also going to touch on many of the points that Livini has raised. Aquila, you're still muted.
Bulalin, can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Aquila.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, very briefly, and apologies for the last minute slide that was sent over early this morning. Yeah, very briefly, in practice on Fiji, on how these conditions and climate risks were assessed, right? Around the schools, in practice. So it's there. One, the assessment, the cyclone damage or infrastructure audits generated detailed information on conditions, exposure, and risk. Two, the findings are fed into sectoral planning processes within the Ministry of Education and relevant national plans. Number three, climate adaptation priorities and flow into budget submissions and project proposals that align with the National Adaptation Plan and Climate Finance Strategy. 4, then this makes it easier for Fiji to access international adaptation finance, deploy funds strategically, and ensure investments strengthen resilience rather than just restore status quo. So in short, right, in brief, Fiji actually integrates school conditions and climate risk assessments into its national climate adaptation planning and financing by mainstreaming risk into development plans and policies, linking evidence to strategic investment decisions through the National Assessment Plan and Climate Finance Strategy, and strengthening governance and budgetary systems to ensure resilience considerations are embedded across all sectors. Okay, so that's very briefly to answer the first question that we had. Number 2 is on the enabling systems, the roles and the partnerships and resourcing. Disaster risk reduction and education in emergencies is one of the departments within the Assets Infrastructure Division of the Ministry of Education. All right? And it has been a key priority of the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education's Assets and Infrastructure Services is actually responsible for the coordination, right, of all disaster, right, DRR efforts for the education sector, right, through partnerships with DMO, UNICEF, ADRA, and Save the Children, Red Cross, and other agencies. AIS administers the emergency response for the education sector. Right, approximately 2/3 of the budget appropriated for the safer schools component is for upgrading, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, and 1/3 for the development of guidelines providing technical support and assessment. Right, all in all, the Ministry of Education has made many efforts to ensure that children and education workers are protected in schools, that education can continue in the face of disaster, and that education sector investments are safeguarded from the impacts of recurring hazards. This is evidence in various policy frameworks that the Ministry of Education has. Right, next slide. What worked well? Embedding GDSI in school disaster risk reduction. The School Disaster Risk Reduction Handbook for Fiji employs 2 interconnected approaches to school-based DRR and resilience building. Right, and those are inclusivity and gender responsiveness. Right, A, inclusive approach to school-based DRR and resilience building considers the viewpoints and needs of everyone who has a stake in school, right? Especially those who are most vulnerable due to disabilities, socioeconomic status, gender, ethnic, linguistic status, and other differences. It ensures that the most vulnerable participate in, have a voice, and benefit from school-based DRR and resilience building efforts. And part 2, a gender-responsive approach to school-based DRR and resilience building recognizes that girls, women, boys, and men have distinct vulnerabilities, needs, and capacities, which shape the way they experience disaster and how they recover from it. Right? So it puts a strong emphasis on action to remove gender inequalities and gender blind spots in policy and practice. Right? It ensures girls, women, boys, and men are an integral and recognized part of school-based DRR and resilience building efforts. Right? At the end of each step description, there is some practical advice on how to make school efforts more inclusive and gender responsive. Next slide, please. Right, the table actually provides a historical history of the impacts of disaster, right? That happened, that occurred in Fiji between 2016 to 2022. Yeah.
Sorry, Leon, I think your slides are not showing. Can you reshare the slide? It seems to have dropped off. Sorry, Aquila, for interrupting.
Are you able to see the slide now with the table of historical impacts?
No.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and start again.
Yes, now it's
showing the
showing.
slide now.
Okay. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
here's actually a very brief history of the cyclones. That happened across Fiji from 2016 to 2021. Right, and maybe lessons for other Pacific Island countries that under the Assets Monitoring Unit, which was the previous name, right, that is now being changed to the Assets and Infrastructure Services. It led to the establishment of a unit, the Emergency in Education, disaster risk reduction. Right? It re-emphasized comprehensive school safety plan to be strengthened with more capacity building across all sections of the ministry and schools on school safety. Right? And the inclusion of relevant stakeholders in the Ministry of Education response team that work closely with children. Right? So this is to avoid duplication and allow a well-coordinated operation. Right? Number 4, there is a clear demarcations of roles for education officers and teachers during a natural disaster. Number 5, schools need to be assisted through pre-positioning emergency supplies in schools designated as evacuation centers. Number 6, all divisions to have emergency warehouses, right? Maybe containers or buildings, right, for storage. 7, all offices should go through basic counseling training. Number 8, strengthen network and partnership with existing counseling organizations like churches and other religions organizations and NGOs like Save the Children's Fund. And the last one is the capacity building for retired teachers who can be there to volunteer to replace the teachers in affected areas. Right, so that was very briefly lessons learned that hopefully might help the other member Pacific Island countries also.
Thank you so much. You've really touched on some of those sort of institutional and also operational changes that you've made, and with a really strong focus on the gender and inclusion elements. I wonder if any of the other people on the call would like to ask a question about the presentation as we have some time.
We do have several questions in the chat, Lian. Yeah, we have four in total. One from Roy Obed. Roy, I don't know if you would like to come in on your question. You can unmute your mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I used to be a school principal in a high school, now a college, and it's very close to the sea. And the experience of iron sheets being corroded in a very short time is a real experience during disaster and even in normal situations. So the question I ask is, in the past, the school I refer to used to be administered by missionaries from Australia and New Zealand, and most of the buildings were built by them, and most of the roofing are iron sheets, galvanized iron sheets. So I raised the question because of not only sustainability, but also of cost saving, durability for a long time. So is there any consideration of Pacific Islands? Because most of our schools are located very close to the sea. Thank you.
Aquila, are you able to, would you like to respond to that, or possibly there's some other country out there that might have and some guidance for Roy? This is a problem throughout the Pacific. So if anybody does, yeah, I'll hand over.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I'll have one of our team members here to answer on that. Yeah, Mr. Inoke. Oh no, what's that?
Just to respond to that answer, that question, I beg your pardon. I served about 4 years on an island school, and that the corrosion of corrugated iron on the premises, it's 365 days a year. It's not only when on a cyclone. So what we did, we planted 5 rows of coconut trees on the foreshore, just to prevent sea spray contacting the schools on a daily basis. So we found that effective. When the trees matured, we replanted shootings in between the bigger trees, just to prevent the sea spray, even though it might take a while to get a cyclone in, but sea spray is a continuous activity on a daily basis, so we need to prevent it. So one of the preventive measures on corrosion on the island, for any Pacific island, is just protecting your premises from sea spray, and we found that effective. So planting coconut trees on the foreshores of our school did wonders for the school, apart from guarding it on a periodic table once a year, twice a year. And that did wonders for the schools. Naka.
Thank you.
That's it from us, Lini.
Wanaka. Thank you both very much. We'll move on to Samson, who's going to present the Vanuatu context. So I'll hand over to you, Samson.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the other two colleagues for the presentation that we have had. I think we're learning a lot from the presentation that have been shared. And I will say the experience that we in Vanuatu are having and currently implementing some of the programs. I think just before I do that, I would like to highlight that Vanuatu is one of the countries that is prone to almost every disaster. So since 2015, we have had TC BAM in 2017. 2015, we have had DC pump. 2017, we have had the eruption of the Manara volcano on Nambai, which the whole residents of the whole population were relocated. 2020, we had DC Haro. 23, we had Judy and Kevin at the beginning, and in October, we had DC Lola. So it was quite a tense moment for the ministry to try. And in 2024, we had a December earthquake. So it was quite a lot for the ministry to to try and deal with this disaster. So I will do my presentation as just in guidance to the questions that have been up on the screen. So how did Vanuatu assess the conditions and climate risk of schools infrastructure? Firstly, I'd like to say in 2014-15, the Ministry of Education did an asset survey on all primary schools in the country. By doing that asset survey, the ministry intends to identify the school, how many buildings are in a school, and then come up with a site plan for the school so that we can better estimate, if a disaster strikes, we can better estimate the cost that can be put back into the school. So that is one of the assessment that we have done, that we have found that it has been really helpful to us. It has been quite for some times now, and the ministry is intending to to do that survey again, at least to have the real data on the with us, just to update our survey plans. It has been quite some times because of the disaster that has came to pass, so we need to do that. So with the survey plan, we have the site plan, the overlays, and we have a building, and each building has been measured and drafted back to plan with our drafting technicians, our teams here. So we have those informations all in our system. We also have the participatory insights with the school council, the communities, and then also with this community awareness that we're doing, we also include all this the CSESI information and awareness that we are carrying out with the communities. So I think in terms of all this the climate risk and schools, I think it's still part of the ongoing work that we're working with other stakeholders like UNICEF and Save the Children and other Tonga partners. It's still a new thing with us, but we are the ministry is focusing on making sure that we understand better locations of the schools and the risks that are associated with them. So yeah, there was a report that the World Bank had produced on the risk assessment, but however, we are still to locate that report, and then maybe we can share it around with the teams there. Everyone. Yeah, can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. Specificities of post disaster damage assessment. So when a disaster occurs, what the ministry normally does is it sends out a team of staff technicians to go out and do the assessment. Based on that assessment, we take it back into the ministry to make the decisions. But I think there has been some changes lately that affected our assessment of DC Lola, where the government wanted to use this decentralization process, where they uses our area administrators to do the assessment. One of the risks, one of the difficulties we had with that was the staff on the ground were not, they're not technically trained to do building assessment. So that gave us the challenges. So our team from the ministry has to go back down and do the assessment again and come up with a report that is we quantify the scope of work, and then we do our final costings on the project. So I think in terms of the assessment, yeah, we have a team We have a team within the ministry that is always ready. When disaster strikes, we sort of like send them out to do the proper assessment in terms of the building infrastructures here. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So how were priority sets and projects plans are financed? So I think one of the criteria that the ministry use is the data that we have collected from previous baseline. For example, I have just mentioned the asset survey that we have carried out. And the other priority is projected enrollment figures within the affected areas that we really need to address. Secondly, we're also looking at the severity of the damages in the school and the nearby communities. And along with our Tonga partners and other stakeholders, we sort of like come together to make the decision for the recovery. And I think the final approval is given by the ministry as to where recovery funds can be implemented. With that, we have done also community consultation, and I'd like to say that for every new projects that we undertake on an island, there is always like a community awareness that has to go on with the school, making sure that we understand the needs of the school, how the school can be, how the community can be involved to make sure that they take ownership of the project. That is with the example that we're working with now is the EU project, EU funding that the UNICEF is managing. So we are currently undertaking some community prioritization and community awareness, making sure that our communities are happy with the project and that they can take ownership with the project before the ministry moves in to implement the project. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, what worked well during implementation? As you know, for us, preliminary scoping and detailed assessment for school selections using alien quality data, that has always been a challenge for us. Some of the data set we have collected during our school surveys are no longer there because of the disaster that we have encountered, and we have to go back to do our set survey again to making sure that we update the data on our systems. Community consultation and mobilization, I think that is something that we have always been using to make sure that communities are in agreement with the works that we're doing. Awareness within the community has been always one of the key tools that we use, making sure that the communities work with us in terms of the project that we are implementing. I think with the support that DFAT has been giving, there is Vanuatu skills partnership, which they have been going around within the communities and training plumbers and carpentry. So we have these people available within some of our provinces now that have been upskilled. They have been providing capacity building to all the local communities, making sure that they have the knowledge to, do carpentry works and also plumbing and also other areas. So skills partnership has been really beneficial to us within the Ministry of Education. And we have been using on some of the projects that we have implemented, we have been using the communities to build on our behalf. On our behalf, we take the responsibility to supervision, while our laborers come from the communities. Capacity buildings of school principals helps to implement the project. One of the key group of people that we also like to target are our school maintenance officers within the school, that they are employed by the school. They are some of the people that we would also like to bring that capacity building to them, which we have already been doing. Collaboration with existing WASH technicians in communities where they exist. So that is another set of skills people that we also have within the community that Washington schools have been doing the training with them. So I think for those of us who know Vanuatu within the Panama province, we have implemented Washington schools across the province. We are now working on Sanma province, and also will be moving on to Torba province to implement the WASH program. So before we move into this community into the provinces, we do like WASH technician, the training before we carry out all the works. I think UNICEF is carrying out most of those activities on our behalf, and we are working closely with them to implement the WASH projects here. Next one, please. What are the key challenges and constraints encountered? I think in terms of a quick assessment, that is also a challenge for us. We don't have the right people with the capability to do assessment on the ground. For example, if a disaster strikes within the Torba province, that's quite a long way from Port Vila. So in terms of having the right people to do some immediate response, challenges to do assessment on the ground is sometimes challenging for us. Also, the geographical locations of islands within Vanuatu is also one of the challenges that we have. We have only when the water is good and transport are available, we can move between islands really quickly. But if we have like a severe weather problem, and that is also a challenge for us. I think these days also this difference between needs and the actual expectation of what we want to do. So communities will want to see us do more implementation, but when we move in, we basically try to target the main needs that are within the schools, and that will be really basically to try and provide shelters for learning. Like other colleagues have mentioned, we also have like supply chain is also an issue for us. Though we have some good hardwares within the country, it's also a challenge for us to source construction materials. Vanuatu is now experiencing, high frequencies of disasters, so that is also a big challenge for us. Like I said, in 2023 we had TC Judy and Kevin. In February and then October, we had TC Lola that was quite severe. While we're still trying to respond to them, then 2024 earthquake, that also caused another, that is also like another disaster that we're trying to address. So it's a frequency of disasters that Vanuatu is experiencing right now. I think one of the challenges we have to is the internal tender process within the government. That is also something that is, some projects can really take over 3 months to just to fulfill like the tender process. With the increase of the threshold for the low value to the higher value, we have now implemented some of our projects, but again, when it comes to processes, that is something that has been challenges for us, giving us, taking up most of our time to implement our projects. So practical lessons and recommendations. So continue promoting and raising awareness of school infrastructure, standard design. So this year we are planning to do some, provincial maintenance training with our provincial staff. The Ministry of Education has a maintenance manual that we are operating on. We have come up with also our primary school infrastructure standards. Currently, the Ministry of Education has engaged EMFA to doing the secondary school infrastructure standard, which we will all want to see both combined into one infrastructure standard for the ministry. I think one of the other things that we have also practical lessons that we have identified is reinforced applications of the Vanuatu National Building Code. So Last year, the government finalized the review of the Vanuatu National Building Codes, which the ministry itself has submitted all its plan and get approval to make sure that all our designs are in compliance with the Vanuatu National Building Code. We are still, sort of some standard designs like that we are still do, the design, but that is on the way that we will achieve those. But yeah, I think the main thing there is to make sure that all our designs are compliant with the Vanuatu National Building Code. Focus on better maintenance. We are doing all this awareness with the principals of schools, making sure that they carry out maintenance trainings within the school. I think in the coming weeks, we will be having one of the principals workshop, which we will also be part of that. And as part of our team, we will be doing a little bit of presentation to all our principals in terms of what is needed of them to do for the school in terms of school maintenance and better management of school infrastructure. So all in all, I think the ministry has been working to making sure that there is capacity building within the school, within the provinces, and also that we have enough funding, making sure that we implement our activities. So yeah, I think that's basically what I can say. If there's any question that we can sort of like respond to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samson. You have covered a lot of ground there, and I think really highlighted well the place that the community has, and how I'm particularly interested in how you take on and them as obviously implementers as well. But what we'll do is I'll look and put this to the floor at first and say, has anybody got any questions for Samson? We also have questions in the chat. So I'll open up if anyone would like to turn on their camera and turn on their mic and ask a question to any of the presenters.
I'd love to ask a question of all the presenters, if I may. It's David from Save the Children. I did put them in chat, so I'm not sure if the presenters have had a chance to have a look yet. Firstly, you guys did all a great job talking about the past experiences that you've gone through and the changes you've put in place. And I guess I'm a procurement advisor, and so my first question is really focused around that. The changes that you've put in place in your procurement processes, Lavinia, I heard you speak about putting in safe work and controlling the expectation and setting that. Did you do anything in your procurement process to meet that need, or anything really to build back better? Samson, I know you discussed, and we're very aware of our changes in Vanuatu, so thank you for that. But also in Fiji, what changes have you put in place to really help drive this when you start the procurement process?
Thank you. I think the situation here in Tonga has changed quite a lot since in particularly we talk about the terms of proximity to the seas. I think you also mentioned that talking about the quality of the tents, and also I think what we try to improve is the specification to the roofing materials, particularly in the islands situation where sea sprays are coming from either direction, east, west, or north, south. It's still sea sprays coming through, whether you like it or not. You don't see the sea sprays coming through, but one of the things that what we normally, the school built with normal Caucasian iron. Of course, if we put the roof in a much higher slope, that will eliminate that. I mean, the next rain, hopefully the next rain will wash out the settlement of salt on this, the roof surface, and also improving the specification for the roofing. We then do specify a color steel or even a color bond roofing material nowadays that will also give some, 20 years up to 30 years guaranteed from the suppliers that will last. And otherwise, we will have to go back to the normal fetching roof. But the fetching roof, it means that the community have to be participated, because in every 4 or 5 years, the fetching need to be replaced. And it's getting more and more. Everyone in Tonga seems to get westernized now, that they no longer have a member of the local community can weave out the fetching for roofing material, for example, right? But I think we have tried to improve the specification for the roofing. There's also some mention of the tent, the quality of the tent that can last up to 2 to 3 years. That is something that we yet to have, because the problem is with the local tent is you need always time to try it out, instead of rolling it up and put it up in the rooms, and then 3 weeks later when you come to unroll it, they start mold and start growing, and nature take it all. So it will have problem with keeping the tents for a prolonged period. But that's mainly my issue for you with the tents issue, and also the proximity of the schools to sea areas, which we do often have. A lot of schools in Tonga are close to the sea. Yeah, that's mainly my comment from at this point.
Is that answer to the procurement type questions, David, that you were searching for, or would you like another speaker to elaborate?
I'd love some of the other speakers, and also,
Thank you, Lavini.
Thank you, Lavini. You touched on the other part of the question, which was great, which was, that fast recovery by using, whether it's tents or containers, to get something in place really quickly after a disaster. But if the other presenters do have an answer, that'd be amazing.
There's hands from Natalie and Chris. So maybe we can go over to Natalie and then Chris.
And Natalie, your question, I'm just going through the chat now, is about monitoring widely dispersed schools across wide distances of ocean space where there could be a lack of communications infrastructure. And we've heard from the presenters how important assessment is, and how this will be particularly challenging in the context you're operating in. So would you like to phrase your question differently, or should we put it out to the floor? Are other countries also having this issue, and how do you overcome, particularly in a country like Vanuatu with so many remote provinces? You had area officers who were helping, but that appeared not to be substantial. And then, Samson, you noted that you have a team now who go out, who are based in the central area in Port Moresby. So Natalie, would you like to pose your question?
Sorry, it's my colleague John that's going to be speaking to you. We're just sharing the same connection.
Yes,
okay.
that was our question upon chat. We do have a challenge of trying to work with our dispersed schools. So yeah, if anybody has a similar situation and experience in that area.
Can you just come up again with your question, please?
How do you monitor your schools given they're like dispersed, and especially with long distances and such? Because we were kind of facing the same challenge here with the distance.
Okay, I'll just talk a little bit about how we operate within the ministry here. So, I think firstly it's the physical assessment of the sites and of where the project will be located, and once we have approval on that, I think with the current programs that we have now is we are fortunate that with the support that we get from the Autona partners, we now allocate project managers for each province where they monitor all the programs, activities that are happening within those provinces. So for us, Panama province, we have a project manager for the earthquake recovery itself within Port Vila, because that is quite a big one. We have a project manager for Malakula, the TC Lola and TC Lola recovery. We have a project manager. So within our education structure, we also have officers that are within our provinces, which we call them provincial maintenance officers. They would normally liaise with the principal, and once we have projects on within the province, there would be our eyes on our projects within the province. So we utilize them a lot in terms of the weekly supervision of the projects that we were working on. But at the same time, when it comes to technical assessment in terms of construction, for example, if they have done the footing and lay out all the rebars, reinforcement, and they would like to pour the concrete, we have to have a technical officer go on site, physically inspect and confirm before the contractor do the boring. So that is part of the assessment, the work that we're doing. Even though it's it's challenging in terms of traveling and logistics, we try to make sure that we plan our work according to the activities that we have. So each project manager is assigned to making sure that all the activities that are happening within each of these provinces are in accordance with the plan that the ministry is putting out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds like you have quite you've been able to place staff in these more remoter locations. Do any other countries have any experience where maybe it's smaller schools, smaller islands where you aren't able to place a project manager, or you're relying on remote support? Are there ways of supporting the construction process using sort of phones as being able to do real-time calls to be able to assess infrastructure or to provide technical guidance? How else might it be managed?
Yeah, I think the situation here in Tonga is somewhat maybe a little different by using the technology that we have nowadays, particularly drones. And, normally the case, particularly in a small island situation where you go on these emergency ships, then you get off to smaller ships to get ashore. A process that will take at least about 2 to 3 hours to get ashore. And normally the school size is only about 3 or 4 students in the school. It's not worth spending half a day out there, but we sit from the ship and send the drone over to the island. And then we also have someone from statistics department, because collecting data is now by law, it's the ministry statistic departments are collecting the data. And we were using the what's the templates that they shared at the time with the ministry, and using the program. I don't know whether you are aware of Compo Tools that was used, where the drones cover the photo of the island schools and be back. And before 2 hours runs out, we already on the way to the next islands. And this is a big plus to the islands hopping, because otherwise you will take at least 2 to 3 weeks to have all the islands covered in terms of details. When we have a drone that within the ship, that it can coast and do the work, and half an hour later we're on our way to the next island. And I think this is the way forward that we have tried to manage it from this end, because Tonga's situation is not far off from what Vanuatu already said. We have so many small islands, and some of the schools, as I said, there was only 5 or 6 students in a school. It's not where we're looking at spending quite hundreds of thousands into a small situation. We need to even up the numbers. But I think this is the way we try to address it from this end. Marlo.
Thank you, Lavini. That's really interesting example that you're giving of how you're addressing it, and may be able to harness kind of new communications opportunities. So with that, I'm afraid we're going to have to call an end to the Q&A session, because we have run out of time. I feel like we could probably have had another 3 hours to work through many of the synergies and the different points that the speakers have put up. But this is all really useful information for us as the CSESI Pacific Help Desk team to understand, where your interests lie and what you would like to know more about. So please don't be shy about putting comments in the chat, because we will go through that, and we'll have a good understanding of what, different types of areas that you're interested in us exploring further in the future. We also have a short webinar survey, which if you take out your phone, you can scan the QR code, or you can type in the link into your desktop or whatever device you're using. And the last question actually asks you, how can we improve next time? Within that section, please also write, this is the topic I would like to explore further next time. So we'll give you 5 minutes to do this. So I can't see what you're doing, but I'm hoping that you're doing it, and we'll get back to you and let you know kind of what the outcome of the survey was. So if you scan the code and start with the first question, it's basically asking how valuable this session has been for your work. Was it useful? Was it not useful? Whether this format is useful, how long it is, how interactive we've been able to make it. How would you rate speakers? How relevant was their presentation to your topic? Just a simple kind of yes to no ratio, 1 to 4 there. And then, as I was just explaining, how do we improve? How do we make this better for the future? So I'll give you 5 minutes for that. And let me know if you're having any troubles.
Leanne, I was just thinking maybe while we give them 5 minutes to do that, can we allow anyone to maybe ask any question now? I saw a few hands earlier, so maybe let's give that opportunity while people are filling up the form. I saw Chris hands earlier, and also Natalie had also a hand up as well. Maybe Chris or Natalie, if any one of you can come on.
Yeah, thanks, John. Chris from Solomon Island. We have managed to post my first question. It's something to do with annual budgeting for disaster-affected schools. This morning, my colleague Lore and I were discussing with one ADB consultant to the Solomon Ministry of Finance, and we realized the importance of having some budget support annually for disaster-affected schools. Currently, the Solomon Islands Ministry of Education doesn't have something like that included. However, we usually realize that disasters affecting school is something annually experienced. So it's a realization. I don't know whether different countries in the Pacific do have that in their annual budget to the government. That's one. Two, the question to Fiji and Vanuatu, especially with their FEMIS and VEMIS, with the disaster data that is collected, is it in that system, the FEMIS and the VEMIS? And where is that data inputted? Is it from the school level or it is done nationally at the headquarter level? Thank you.
Okay, should I go first? Yeah, I'd like to respond on behalf of Vanuatu. So normally, yeah, those data should be up in the open FEMIS. That's the Ministry of Education, website that has we upload information to. But I think most of the information are coordinated at a central level here in Port Vila. Most of the details are provided under the ministry after the assessments are done. And I think what we have is basically the list of school, the assessment, and the recommendations that that usually should be up on the website. But for your questions, I will definitely have to check that if we have uploaded anything for the past disasters that we have encountered. So yeah, that will be something for me to check. And if it's not there, maybe we will upload all the assessments that have been done in the past. Thank you.
That was a response to the second question. Does anyone else have any information on how information is inputted into EMIS and how it's used to ensure climate resilience is factored into infrastructure?
Oh yeah, if I can just comment on the budget issue. This is really a challenging one for Vanuatu. Unfortunately, the national government, does not have any specific lines for disaster recovery or disaster recovery. What normally happens is when there's a disaster, there's normally like competitions in terms of funding approvals that would normally come after like disasters. But we rely mainly on our donor partners after the assessment are done. And if there's any money put aside to meet the recovery, program towards the disaster year. So unfortunately for us, we have a little bit of like maintenance budget that is set aside, specifically control at the head office, but not specific to schools. Schools only get what we call like the school grant paid by the ministry. And I understand that the school grant is normally distributed between the curriculum activities and other activities by the school. And this is one of the activities like the school maintenance. But again, like I mentioned during my presentation, we really need to make more awareness to the schools and teach them, especially the school maintenance officers, as to how they can use this limited budget to contributing to maintain infrastructure within the schools. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There was also, oh.
Lynn.
Yes.
Aquila. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will probably just give in a little brief from Fiji, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Ekos, who's here beside me. Thank you.
Naka, could I just give an example on Cyclone Winston? We had this app called AgvoFlow, which was in partnership with UNICEF Fiji. So we visited or did assessments on all the 485 affected schools, and all data which was collected by AgVoflo was uploaded onto FEMIS. So we had a map of all schools which were affected. So when you clicked on the particular schools, you were given a summary, all the infrastructure damages which occurred on the school, and also the EIE supplies which were given to school. So those are some of the things which we uploaded on FEMIS. So maybe on the 5-year period, we took down some of the, but now we've made amendments to the FEMIS. We have a tab specifically on WASH, on the number of WASH points, on the number of cubicles, whether the schools are meeting SDG goals. And we also have questions on infrastructure. We also have questions on the water tanks. So those are some of the things which are entailed within the FEMIS. Other things that also assist schools, as also highlighted by our colleagues from Vanuatu. We also give out
Aquila, your presentation's just frozen. I wonder if you turn off your video, if it might come through again. They appear to have frozen. So AgVoflo was one of the data collection software programs that Fiji have been using successfully. It sounds 5 years ago, and managing data and aligning it with FEMIS. So that would be something to learn from, which I think would have application to many other countries. We're also unfortunately coming to the end of this webinar. We just have a couple of minutes to go. So please, again, put comments in the chat if there's anything you'd like further information on. And also, I'm just put on the screen the link to the Pacific CSESI help desk. Again, I've got the page and the hyperlink to the page there. There is a small button, Climate Smart Schools, at the top. If you click onto it, it will bring up that form that I showed at the beginning of this presentation. And within that form, you could submit your requests to the help desk. The other key request that I have, and I see the Solomon Islands was offering to share their standard school designs, was that we are collecting standard school designs from the countries in the region. We're going to do a benchmarking report. This is to let countries see how their current standard school designs currently consider climate smart considerations. It's not a test, it's not a pass fail. It's something to help support you to prioritize what your next steps would be to strengthen climate resilience within school designs. And we understand a lot of countries are looking at revising their current school designs. Some countries are still kind of at the starting gate with that. So within that, there will be a report, but we'll also provide an individual country snapshot to you so that you can help with the inclusion elements, GEDC, environmental performance, and how you might start taking those next steps. So please get in contact with me. Please share your school designs. If you'd like to know more about how we'll store the information, whether we will share the information, I can give you more information on that. But it's documents such as the designs themselves, any technical specifications you have on roofing or other materials, maintenance manuals, investment spreadsheets, or operations and maintenance responsibilities, essentially your toolbox for managing school infrastructure. If you would share it with us and enable us to share lessons across the region, that would be very much appreciated. So I'll pass over to John now, just for the final thank yous. I mean, it's been a really informative session. The speakers have You've been really open and put a lot of effort into coming together to share with each other. I think this is the first time something like this has happened, where we've had the technical people sharing across the different ministries. Hopefully there were 10 countries. I couldn't tell from everybody's, from the different people on the call, but I'll just pass over to John for a brief summing up and just a brief goodbye.
Thank you, Lynn, for leading us throughout the session. Once again, we would like to really thank everyone for your contributions and discussions in the session. It was really a live session, and we look forward to having similar discussions in the upcoming webinars. So yeah, really thankful for your engagement for this session, and we will continue to look at the feedback from the survey link that was shared, and we'll also make a follow-up communications from this webinar to look at, improving some of the work we will be doing later, especially with this component, but also other areas as well. So once again, thank you too much, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Thomas. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tanaka.